So let me introduce you to this lens, and I'll give you a summary of the three of the core principles. You've read the book, so I'll go fairly quickly, but then we can have lots of time for your questions. So the first concept, the role of source. So in every human initiative, so in every company, in every event, in every project, there is exactly one individual in this particular role that Peter Koenig called the role of source. The role emerges naturally. It's not a role you can be appointed into. And even when we feel like we have equal co-founders in an initiative, the role of source is never shared between them, always one person. And it's separate from formal job titles and roles. And it's not the same as being a leader, although maybe you will need to be a leader, but it's more like the chief listener, the person who's really connected to the potential that we're trying to realize. And if you are a big fan of egalitarian systems where we consider everybody to be equal, sometimes this idea is uncomfortable. And if that is the case for you and you feel uncomfortable with this idea of one person, I just encourage you to sit with the uncomfortable feeling. And I don't tell you you are wrong. I just tell you or I encourage you to try on a different perspective and see how that works for you. And now when we think about people working together to realize a vision, we usually start thinking about organizations. We think about structure and processes, legal entities, shares. We think about the informal organization, the connections of influence and trust, and those kinds of things. And those things are what we consider to be an organization, like in the picture. And what we often do is we think about organizations as being things, like they are entities. And sometimes this is extended so far as to say an organization has a purpose, or an organization has a soul that's somehow separate to humans. And this can be a powerful idea. And I don't tell you that you're wrong if you want to use that idea, but sometimes it's not adequate and it can lead to problems. So we're going to introduce a different way to think about organizations. So the shift that we want to make is away from thinking of organizations as being things, a thing that might have a purpose or a soul. And instead, we just think of organizing as something that we do. It's a process. And as we do this, we can see all of the efforts to organize and the work to realize the vision as happening in a space we call a creative field. And I think of a creative field in two ways. The first way is that it's partly like the ground that we stand on when we work together to realize the idea. It's like the planet that we inhabit. And the second way is that it's also like a gravitational field, or a field of attraction that attracts in the people and resources that are needed to realize the vision. It holds it together. The individual in the role of source has a very personal, intimate connection with the creative field and to the process of realizing the vision that's different to anybody else. And the vitality of the field is closely linked to the source until she passes the role of source to a successor through a heartfelt rite of passage. And what often appear to be organizational problems or cultural problems in an initiative have deeper root causes in the creative field and with the source. And so the source is, their unique role is to listen very deeply for insight about what is in and what is out of scope, and what the next step is for the whole initiative. And the source must protect the edge so that it doesn't become all things to all people. They must be ready to make decisions that affect the whole field and to act on those decisions.